Today's discussion is about the menopause and perimenopause and the impact that can have on leaders in the workplace. If you're thinking this topic isn't for you because you think you're the wrong age or the wrong sex, then I challenge you to keep listening, because by the end of the episode, I hope you'll know exactly why this topic is one all leaders need to pay attention to. I'm Lee Griffith, a leadership strategy coach, and in the Leaders with Impact podcast, I'm proving it's possible to succeed without following outdated rules and old school stereotypes. I'm here to help you get clear on your personal strategy, implement some self-leadership, and connect with those you serve through your communications so that you can deliver improved organisational performance, engagement, and reputation. If you want more leadership insights, sign up to my monthly newsletter at sundayskies.com. In today's episode, I'm chatting with menopause leadership expert Sinead Sharkey Steenson. Sinead helps leaders and organisations to respond to and manage the effects of perimenopause and menopause. She's given a TedX talk on the topic, which I'll link in the show notes, and she's passionate about stopping the talent drain that's been seen in organisations due to a lack of awareness and support. We explore what's meant by perimenopause and menopause, the symptoms people should be aware of, how leaders and organisations can recognise and respond to the challenges people are facing, including how you can make uncomfortable conversations and situations more comfortable. Enjoy. So I'm delighted to welcome Sinead Sharkey Steenson to the Leaders with Impact podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, I'd love to, and thanks for having me. I am a leadership career coach for women, and so I founded my business Generation Women around about 9 years ago when I was out maternity leave with my second daughter. And I thrive and love working with women to help them get to the level that they truly deserve as leaders or in their careers, to help them navigate the leadership landscape. And most recently, that's really started to involve very much navigating perimenopause and menopause. It's like all of my worlds have collided because I've been navigating that time very much as well.
Yeah.
And I was starting to see that the women that I was working with, it's funny because they often come to me feeling like they've lost their mojo, or they're feeling burnt out, or just not really feeling their confident selves that they were. And I started to notice a pattern, and so I've been working for 9 years with women to help them achieve what they really want to achieve in their careers. As I worked with more and more senior leaders at that point in life, I started to notice a pattern of what I was being presented with, and then matching it up with what I was feeling myself, recognizing a lot of similarities, and realized that actually, a lot of women are probably dealing with perimenopause and menopause, not actually knowing that that's what's going on, and it's impacting how they're navigating daily life, but particularly my bit of expertise comes into how they navigate their careers and that leadership piece.
Today, our conversation is very much going to be focused on that latter part of what you've been working on, which is the impact of menopause on leaders and on organisations or people in the workplace. So that we're starting from the same point, and everyone understands what we mean when we're talking about some of these terms, because I think there are misconceptions around menopause, perimenopause. People think they know what it is, they think they know what it entails, but it is very, very broad. So that we are all starting, I suppose, from this common point of understanding. Can you briefly explain by, what is meant by menopause, perimenopause?
Yeah. And of course, postmenopause.
Yes. It never ends, the fun.
So I actually included this in my TED Talk because I think it is really misunderstood, largely because we only started talking about it a couple of years ago. I think most of us didn't realise. Menopause, we'll start there, is a day. And I think that's the bit that's really misunderstood. So menopause is the 1 year anniversary of stopping bleeding. So when you stop bleeding, the clock starts, and on that 1 year anniversary, you have literally gone through menopause. But if you start bleeding again at any time in that year, then the clock starts again. And so there's an awful lot of fuss made about one day. But the reality is that perimenopause, and I say this in my TED Talk, is I was going to say monster. It's not necessarily a monster, but the thing that runs wild through your body anywhere up to a decade before you actually fully stop bleeding and you fully hit menopause. And so that can start with mild symptoms. And I'm not here as a medically with that knowledge, but I know enough about menopause medically to understand what it looks like. But it can feel, perimenopause can be so different for every different person. My personal experience was I had children quite late. So I had my second daughter at 39. And I actually think I slipped from post-childbirth to perimenopause in quite a short time. And so it's useful to know that perimenopause can hit at any stage of life post-puberty, which is something I don't think people know generally, and why many women can actually go through early menopause and not understand what's going on and not be believed that that is what's going on, because it's really not very well known. You can go into perimenopause because of medical challenges. So I had a chat with a woman quite recently that has endometriosis quite severely, and she was put into medical menopause 5 times in a few years because of the treatment that she was on. And so you can be plunged into all the symptoms quite quickly then. But for most of us, the average age and stage is late 30s, early 40s when you start hitting that perimenopause period. And then after menopause, the day, you have post-menopause, which is where you can still face challenges. It's not like when you've hit menopause, everything goes away, because menopause essentially is a hormone deficiency. And the loss of hormones affects everybody differently, a bit like puberty affects everybody differently. When you go through the actual menopause itself, you still have that deficiency in hormones. Now, if you're one of the lucky ones that's got away with it all quite lightly, that may well continue. But for other people, it can mean having challenges based on this hormone deficiency for life. And that's something we have to look at and be able to manage. And so I can tell you about some of the things that you might start to see and whatever, if that's helpful.
Yes. I definitely want to come on to some of the symptoms thing, but just to pick up on, I suppose, the age, because I think this is one of the biggest challenges for people, because there is an assumption that you hit a certain age, and it's usually 50s, and that's where everyone's focus goes. So from an organisation and leadership point of view, they're not looking at perhaps at the broader workforce and how it might be impacting, but also individuals, as you said, don't necessarily recognise symptoms in themselves, because there is this lack of understanding that it could be hitting a lot earlier than people are assuming it could be hitting.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many important things in that, because one of the things, it's like a slow drip. It's not like there's suddenly a switch flipped and you feel completely different. Like it's such a slow process where those hormones shift and change, and so you feel differently. And the other bit that I think is really powerful, because I think we are doing a lot more talking thanks to the likes of the wonderful Davina McCall and celebrities speaking out. And even though they get a lot of backlash for it, I think it's so powerful that they're sharing their stories because they're normalizing that. But what we do need to realize is, because it does hit so much earlier, it's often right at the crux point of your career when you're really taking off. You're starting to get into senior positions, the responsibilities higher. And also it's that point of life where children, if you've got children, they may be growing up, your parents are getting older, we've got lots of pressures and responsibilities elsewhere. So what I've noticed is you've kind of got this pressure sandwich point in life where, oh joy, as women, it's like, no, you don't do enough already. You're not carrying the world on your shoulders. Let's just do this to your body as well. Do this to your mind. So you're not really sure which way is up. And let's see how you can get on and cope. And the amazing thing is, as women, I think even with all of this, we still do cope. We still do amazing jobs. We're maybe not very kind to ourselves in the process. I don't want the menopause conversation to ever diminish women's potential, because I think we work at such a high level, we achieve so much, that actually it's maybe just a time where we pull back a bit, but we're still at a level beyond what most people can hope.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned the M word, men, and and it might feel a bit thrown in here at this point in the conversation, but I suppose I'm appealing to men who may have started to listen to this and then think this isn't anything to do with me because it's not a man's issue. So let's tackle that head on. Why do men need to keep listening to this episode?
Because it's an everybody issue. And I'm only joking about, well, almost only joking, but women do put up with a lot. But it is an everybody issue. So it may directly impact 51% of the population. And maybe you've got younger listeners that would switch off as well, thinking that this isn't for me either. But there's a lot of reasons why this is important. One is, you know a lot of women. You work with women, you have family that are women, you have friends that are women. One of the favorite things that's happened to me through this whole process is my brother actually said to me, I opened up about all of this, and I was having quite a hard time. And he said, you know what? I think some of my friends might be experiencing this as well. And so he went away and read up on it himself. And he was like, right, I can be a support here, or I can pretend it's not going on. And he chose to be a support. And that's the thing. Men have their own challenges, and we know that mental health is a massive issue. And we know, that toxic masculinity and all of those things, men are dealing with a lot of stuff themselves. But so are women, and we're relying on women to be brilliant in business, to be, to raise families, to support parents, to do all of the things. So it's key that we offer the right sort of support, understanding, compassion. And actually, my experience of men in this conversation has been really positive, and has been like, yeah, I do want to learn about this. I do want to be a better support. And they're learning with us, because women haven't had this conversation until recent years. A lot of us are pretty clueless ourselves. Yeah. And so we're all kind of in it together. And this is an opportunity to come together, to work and support each other on our own issues. And then we all benefit from that.
Yeah. Keep listening, please. If your finger was ready to skip.
Yeah, who knows what you'll pick up in this?
Who knows? So let's go back then to, I suppose, the symptoms of perimenopause, which is what's going to affect people for the longest period of time, knowingly or unknowingly. And they I mean, I'm learning about this. I'm experiencing things that I'm assuming are perimenopausal myself. There are so many things that can fall under it. And my husband jokingly says, not everything can be linked to this. And it kind of feels like it can. So let's have a chat about some of the symptoms that people commonly are experiencing, but perhaps maybe not so commonly as well.
Yeah, you're like me. I blame everything on menopause. And your husband isn't quite right in that. Now, again, I'm saying this as non-medically qualified professional. But the thing is, because hormones communicate with every single cell in your body, when there's a loss of hormones, then every single cell in your body can be impacted. And so there's a lot of symptoms that we know about and a lot that we're learning about, and things are changing in that all the time. Now, what I would say is anything, like keep a track of things, and anything too sinister or that you're not sure about, like always be speaking to your doctor about this stuff. Don't just assume it is menopause. But I will share with you some symptoms I know about, some of my own that are maybe not the most joyous, and things I never thought I would be sharing on a public forum. But it's like, if somebody does it, then if it makes one person feel less alone and better about what they're dealing with, then great. So the common things we notice, and I think you'll see at work, are starting to forget things. So suddenly that amazing memory you had, you're having to write everything down. And this is the great thing that we do, is we find strategies to manage the things. It can be losing words, brain fog, feeling like you're wading through treacle times, low energy. And so those things I was living with for ages, and those things are quite natural for a young mum. Those things feel natural when you're busy, when you're stressed. And so it's easy to say, oh, it's just stress, oh, it'll get better when. But the thing is, you start to notice things don't. The things I noticed that for me made me question, was this more than stress or parenthood or whatever? I started to get extreme rage. I joke in the TED Talk, sort of joke, that I could easily have put a hatchet through my husband's head.
Yeah, we've all been there.
So he wasn't really at any risk, but if there had been one there, who knows what could have happened. But I am quite a calm and easygoing person, and I have never experienced rage like it. And so it makes you really question yourself. Other symptoms, irregular bleeding, women suffer blood floods. And so there's a lot of talk about hybrid working and should we be back in the workplace, and whether you're neurodivergent, disabled. Lots of people benefit from working from home, but actually somebody going through perimenopause, you can suddenly have a blood flood, which means you can literally be soaked through without knowing that this is going to happen. And so the comfort of home in those situations is pretty amazing, because it means you can actually carry on about your day. You can still do your job without the fear and the embarrassment and shame. I mean, we've heard about hot flushes, and I hate all the euphemisms that are used, like hot flushes. Some people may feel, oh, I'm a bit hot. But actually, for a lot of women, it is, I can be talking to you 1 minute feeling normal. The next, I could be drenched in sweat. And it's like you have just put a shower over my head. My hair is stuck to me. My clothes are stuck to me. And that causes anxiety then, when is this going to happen to me? Am I going to be in front of the boardroom doing a presentation? And of course, stress exacerbates symptoms. So when you're in a more stressful situation, the likelihood of something like that happening is increased. Anxiety is a really common symptom. And then there's Like there's so many, and there's great resources, like the Balance app is a great place to track symptoms. There's lots of menopause symptom checkers online that I would really encourage you go and check out. But there's interesting ones like itchy skin. Like I could have ripped my arms off with how itchy my skin would be. An impact on histamine, your ability to manage histamines. So I feel like I have severe hay fever all year round. I've heard of burning mouth, itchy eyes, dry eyes, vaginal dryness, and itchiness. Like the list goes on. But a really common one I've heard that I don't think that I've experienced, I don't know if you can call it strictly a symptom, is fear about driving at night. And so when I say this to women, loads of them go, oh my God, yeah, that's me.
That's totally me.
Wow. And it's a mix of, I believe, the impact of the hormone interaction. So stuff with your eyesight does change, but also anxiety. I've never been one really for anxiety, but I would suffer a lot more anxiety about driving, about decision making, about doing things like traveling. I used to take traveling like a pinch of salt. I could have, gone off anywhere on my own, not a problem. Now I'm second guessing, did I book my flights? Are they on the right day? Am I going to the right airport? What am I going to bring? And so everything's a much bigger decision and thought process than it felt like before. And so often women are dealing with all of this alone because they're too scared to say, actually, this, what is going on? First of all, they don't know what's going on. But secondly, they don't want to, we're often in a leadership position, particularly the only woman in the room or, the only woman at a level. And you don't want to make yourself vulnerable and put yourself at risk by declaring all of this is going on and people think I'm not capable of doing my job. Now, there's times you may need a break and whatever, and we could talk about that. But actually, most women get through this. It is a reason why so many women leave the workplace because of the struggle with the symptoms and the lack of support and not maybe knowing what's going on and not knowing how to ask for help.
And how big a problem is that in organisations?
It's actually much bigger. I don't know if we can get a true figure, but Royal London came out with some research, I think it was last year or the year before, that said that 50% of women are considering leaving the workplace because of their menopause symptoms. And Bupa, I think it was, have put a figure of almost 1 million women having left the workplace already because of it. But the challenge is, I've spoken to a chief people officer who had left her job for a year before realizing that that's what it was. So she was just like, I can't cope with this anymore. And so often it's thought that it's actually stress. And what brought it home to me, I've done some work with an amazing woman called Emma Persand, who works in the NHS. She's a menopause expert, but she used to work in occupational health and stress. And she said she got really interested in menopause and did her training and qualifications because she realized that quite often women were being put on a stress pathway through occupational health with nobody recognizing actually it wasn't stress at all. And so when the stress doesn't resolve because the wrong thing was being treated, then it's natural in many organizations that people leave or get managed out. And so it is very common. And yet there's so much we can do to support women so that they don't get to that stage or that they get the help if they are at that stage. And we don't let this amazing talent walk out of the door. These are women that are performing well, that are valuable to the business, that we need to be making a difference and having an impact, and yet they're leaving because it feels like there's no other option.
So what should leaders and organisations be aware of, I suppose, with all this going on, and that uncertainty even in individuals of knowing whether it is related to this, whether it's related to stress, whether it's an organisational issue or a person? Like, there's so many different reasons behind why women could be feeling the way they're feeling in the workplace. How do leaders start to tap into identifying what those issues are and then knowing how to tackle them in the right way?
Yeah, and that is so important, because it's kind of a dangerous conversation, because I have heard many an incidents of in some cases men, in the odd case women, saying, oh, maybe this is your time of life. Like, I've heard that said to women in their early 30s who are experiencing low confidence or low motivation. And there could be 100 different reasons why they're experiencing that. So we don't go in with oh, is this your time of life? And then it almost becomes weaponized against you. But it's like anything. I always think, if we could just have good, supportive conversations, and you might have noticed that somebody's performance has changed, or they may be struggling, but they haven't opened up about it. Like a nice, quiet, safe conversation in the right environment, saying, I have noticed this difference, and I wanted to check in with you. How are you doing? Is everything okay? And how can I help? What can we do to support you better? And so at that point, the person will hopefully feel supported enough to share what's going on. And they may or they may not know. And as part of a conversation, when they open up about what's going on and anything they're struggling with, and a really good thing to do is to listen, obviously, and to not jump on their stuff. But also, if somebody's not forthcoming, is to share some of your own challenges and struggles and show that, we're in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Can be a good way of helping people open up. But if you wanted to do something bigger, I mean, it is about having a menopause policy in place, and there's loads of good examples of them out there in the world. So big companies like Lidl and Vodafone are doing great work, and their stuff is out there. They're sharing case studies. Government websites share that kind of stuff as well. But a policy alone will not change things. It's all about being able to have good conversations. And maybe your manager isn't the right person to speak to you. So maybe having a menopause champion in your organisation that is trained and understands about menopause and can give you that support. Maybe having specific healthcare support can really help. And maybe having coaching support can really help. So that's the thing that I've seen with the women that I work with, is that it's a combination of healthcare, getting the right support there. So, if somebody talks about anxiety or depression or, any physical symptoms and changes, loss of memory, the suggestion that it might be a good idea to speak to your GP to understand this. Or we have this healthcare support here. Why don't we get you a checkup and we can see what's going on? And then when we know what we're dealing with, then we can really give you the best support. And so when people have got the healthcare bit, that is the starting point. And then the coaching bit really comes into its own, because a lot of this stuff can leave a lasting damage and impact. So if you've had a lot of anxiety, struggle, challenge with memory, with different symptoms, your confidence can be massively impacted. Your self-belief can be impacted. So then coaching can really help lift that person back up again and really support them to get back to the amazing potential that they they really have. But I do think we have to give people a bit of time and a bit of grace and a bit of, we all have our good times and bad times, good days and bad days, and to give people grace to have that and not expect massive performance results every single day, especially when the likelihood is that person's probably been overperforming, as I see with women, for quite a long time. Then maybe you can afford to cut them some slack and give them the support they need to get back to feeling themselves.
Yeah. It's an interesting one about having menopause champions and people like that. And I'm very supportive of that. But I also see organisations use that as their tick box, and then they can ignore it at the most senior level in an organisation because they've pushed it down into its appropriate space to be dealt with, and it becomes a HR or an OCI health issue, and it doesn't become something that's a board responsibility to tackle. What are your thoughts on that, I suppose?
So I'm nodding along with you there strongly, because my earlier background, so I have a 20-year background in corporate, and more than half of that was in cultural transformation. So I'm very familiar with tick boxing exercises and how people love to get that ticked off but not really engage in it. And I am so passionate about, you either do it properly or you don't do it at all, because half doing things is so much more damaging than not doing them at all, creating expectation, giving people the idea that the illusion of support actually hurts them so much more than nothing in the first place. So yeah, it's like anything. It has to be, people at all levels need to understand at some level what menopause is and what it's about, and also need to really appreciate that, yes, it can be a challenge for women at this time, but it's totally overcomable, and it doesn't diminish them as individuals, because, and I've used this term already, like my big fear about us talking about this, a lot of women's fear is that it will be weaponized. And I have seen that happen where women have been open and even been asked to speak in the company about their experience. And then that feeds certain people's unconscious bias, and then they've been sidelined because of it. And so inclusion, support is all an action that we have to take daily, and we have to check ourselves on. So we have to say, okay, this person, we can't just look at today's performance. We have to look at the back catalogue of expertise and say, okay, up until this point, they've been amazing. Like, do I really want to lose this person? What support do they need to get back to where they need to be? And if this was me, wouldn't I expect that? And that's everybody's responsibility. So we can't, at the top levels of leadership, say, no, this isn't my problem. We've got our menopause champions now. It's all good. Well, it's actually, as a leadership team, we are a team. Who in the room is at their best, who's struggling and who's having challenges? Menopause or not, we should be providing that support and creating a culture where people feel like they've got that behind them. And that's something that we want to filter through the whole organisation. So it's not a tick and done. It's like, it's an ongoing conversation, support, checking in with people, making it part of your surveys, making it part of conversations. And it's not a how's your menopause doing conversation. Yeah. It's like, how are you doing? How do you feel supported? Do you feel like we as a company are helping you to thrive? Because surely when we all thrive, then the business does better, and people are loyal, people want to stay, people want to do more for you. And so you're actually feeding the whole system for success.
Yeah. And you've touched on this earlier, but the things like looking at your policies and procedures, not just having a policy for menopause, but the broader ones around flexible working, hybrid working. You need that as a leader, even just accommodating a multi-generational workforce. You need to understand the differences. And so, but if you're not asking the question, how does it affect people who might be experiencing menopause? How does it affect people of different age groups? How does it affect people of different race or class or whatever? It's another one of those lenses that you need to look through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand it's really challenging because we are so much aware now than we used to be. There's a lot more things to consider. But it's really simple. If you get a diverse group of people around the table to assess your policies, to input to things, to come up with ideas, then you will naturally get a system of support that works for a diverse set of people. Like, it's really not rocket science. But if you've got 6 men or 6 women in the room designing and 6 white, able-bodied, cis males or females, you are going to get what works for them and nobody else. And so this is why I feel we are in the most exciting time ever, because there's this awakening to how much value diversity brings to the conversation. And not only will it make the culture of your organization better and make people happier and thrive and perform better, but also whatever you're producing as your output is going to be better too, because that's going to serve a wider population outside. So it's
absolutely
a win, 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 win.
Yeah, I mean, this thing, it can sound a bit trite, but your workforce should be reflecting the communities you serve in however you're serving them. And so tackling issues like that, you're being just as supportive to your communities that you're serving as you are your workforce.
Absolutely. And I know you say it's trite, but actually it's ridiculous that it's only now we're waking up to the fact that, that this is how we can do the best possible business, is by having that diversity of thought and diversity of input. And then we get much, much better results for everybody involved.
Can I ask about in the moment, how you handle situations? Because we've talked a lot on the general support, maybe the informal conversations that you're having with people to see what help they might need or how they're feeling and all of that. And it is an uncomfortable conversation for many people to have. But then you've got that moment where you might see someone struggling in a board meeting or doing a presentation. They might be, you might visibly see them have the hot flush. They might be lost for words. They might be perhaps reacting quite strongly to something that you feel is out of proportion, but actually that's the rage that they're feeling that you've mentioned. So how can leaders better prepare to deal with stuff in the moment? And what does a good response look like if they recognise this of a colleague?
I love that. And what a great question. Part of it comes down to knowing your people. Each of us respond differently to different things. Some people will want somebody to come beside them and offer them support, whereas other people, that's going to be a challenge for. So I can give some tips, but first of all, it's important to think it's not always a one size fits all. Knowing who you're with and what's good for them. And so it all comes down to great communication and great conversations. If you've built relationships, if you've made a comfortable environment, then people are going to feel more open to share themselves. And so one way you can do that is by you starting sharing. And it's not just, as a man, you're obviously not going to be able to share about your menopause experience, but seeing, I'm going to my daughter's football match today, I'm leaving early. oh, I'm having a bit of a stressy head day today. I feel like I just need to take some time and go and be on my own. So just that process of being more open with what's going on with you creates a culture of openness in itself.
Mm.
And if somebody is struggling in the moment, then they're going to feel more able to say, oh, like, and if you're a woman going through menopause, you're in a senior leadership position and you feel it's, comfortable. You can say, oh, I'm having a brain fog moment, or I'm having a hot flush. I think I just need to take a break. Approaching the person, then it's, maybe saying, you're doing a great job there. It looks like it will be a good time for us all to have a break and a stretch, grab a coffee, and then we can come back and see the rest of your amazing presentation or whatever it is. But creating time and space for somebody, you don't have to call out the issue. You don't have to say, oh, it looks like you're getting in a bit of a hot mess there, love. Things I have heard being said.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like you're getting a bit emotional there. Those are not helpful things to say. But saying, I feel like we could all use a break right about now. We've been sitting in this hot room for a while. I think it would do us all a bit of good to take a breather and a stretch and come back to this. Just gives everybody time and space, and then that person can go and collect themselves and gather themselves. And menopausal or whatever it is, every person has needed that at some point in their career. And so giving whoever it is going through that challenging moment, that time and space is all that's needed.
Yeah. We're getting to the end of our time together. So a couple of final wrap up questions. One, I suppose, is just a signposting. If someone's listened to this episode, have recognised in themselves or in others that actually it's something that they need to go and do some further exploration or seek some support, where would you suggest they go?
Well, there's two places you can connect with me easily, and I would be happy to have a chat with you and signpost you. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Sinead Sharkey Steenson, or check out my website, genwomen.global. There are some great menopause resources online, and particularly for procedures and that kind of thing. Check out government websites. But I always think, look at what are the best businesses doing? And they usually are open and share their stuff. Why not? Why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from them and follow what they're doing? And the big thing is don't just think about it. Go and talk to your people. Ask what do they want, and go out and find that help. And I'm happy to have a chat and signpost you. And I'm sure there's plenty of other experts out there that would be happy to as well.
Great. We'll put all the links in the show notes for people who are interested. My final question, and it's one I ask all our experts that come on the show, what's the one piece of advice that you would like leaders to take away from today's conversation?
Oh, it's always hard to pick one thing. I think that the one thing I would say from working with I coached men for a long time before I coached women, is we could all use some more self-compassion. So when I work with people, a lot of what we focus on is how to reduce the stress we put on ourselves, because that's something we have a lot of influence over. We maybe don't have influence over the external, but we can do a lot with the internal. If you're afraid of saying the wrong thing as a man dealing with this situation, lighten up on yourself. The fact that you've got good intention, maybe you declare that and say, I'm scared of saying the wrong thing here. I just want you to know I'm here and supportive. As a woman, cut yourself some slack. Be kind to yourself. Recognize that you carry so much, and that it is okay to have an off day, an off week, an off month, whatever it is, but to go and ask for help for that. And when we're kind to ourselves and recognize that we can't do it all, then we can start to make real progress. And that's what I love to help people achieve, so that they can release that load on themselves and get on with what they need to do to be in a better place and space.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sinead, and I hope to speak again soon.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and let me know what you thought on LinkedIn. You can find me at Lee Griffith. I'll be back with the next episode in 2 weeks' time. So in the meantime, sign up to my newsletter at sundayskies.com for monthly insights on how else you can lead with impact. Until next time.